What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It is time for a review of the 5th studio album by DJ Calvin Harris. He's pretty popular at this point. It's hard to believe that we're in his 5th studio album now. His first record came out 10 years ago whenever he was just a broke kid putting out stuff while living with his dad. So he's come quite a long way. I've enjoyed quite a bit of his singles, some of his albums over the years. Not really a full-length project that I could say that I'm fully crazy about, but like I said, he's got some great songs over the years that I can't deny. Some of the tracks off of his most recent album that came out in 2014 I found to be kind of forgettable, and even though there were some singles that really stuck, as a whole, I really don't think 18 Months was as great of a project as it could have been. Although, one of my favorite songs from him and one of my favorite electronic songs ever is the track with Florence Welch of Florence and the Machine, Sweet Nothing is ace. So this time around, he's done away with the EDM thing, 4 on the floor, dance floor beats, in favor of something much more funky, a la 2013 Get Lucky Daft Punk. And of course, not only does it draw that comparison because of the style of the music, but he's brought on Pharrell Williams for 2 tracks, just like Daft Punk did on their record Random Access Memories. So that's cool. He definitely fits that vibe quite well, and it's nice to see Calvin Harris trying something new. And it's not bad at all. To be quite honest, this is a pretty enjoyable, vibey record that is perfect for summer. It's the record of the season, I suppose you could say. Funk Wav Bounces Volume 1. When is Volume 2 coming? I'm not sure. Maybe next summer, or maybe it's going to be a winter wave. Who knows exactly what he has up his sleeve. So he's got a list of star collaborators here with everyone from Frank Ocean and Migos on Slide, the single everyone was buzzing about, to Nicki Minaj. Of course, we've got John Legend, Snoop Dogg, Pharrell, like I said, Katy Perry, Ariana Grande, Lil Yachty. The list goes on. He's got 10 tracks, but they are all stacked, and it is just a full lineup. And in that, I do kind of wish that Calvin Harris would still sing at least backing vocals, or at least a little bit more prominently, maybe even as a lead vocalist, switching off with some of these people here, because I, unlike a lot of others, actually like his voice. That's right, I'm a fan of Feel So Close, one of the only big singles of his that he actually sings on. And I like that. I think he's just a fine singer. At least it's better than the shit that we're getting from the Chainsmokers trying to sing now. With this funky vibe, expect a lot of big bass lines, a lot of those pianos and keyboards creeping up on you, and a little bit of a guitar melody and flair that I'm really liking. Calvin Harris did the majority of the instrumentation here, and I have to respect that. He played a lot of roles as the producer, as the writer, crafting these songs, and not so much beats anymore as they are backing instrumentals. And I think that he's putting in more work on projects like this than he was on more of his EDM stuff, and I can appreciate that. As someone who feels like the industry standard is just slipping as to what's quality, what's good, or what it takes to make a song, he went the extra mile to actually make something with real instruments, for the most part, and that's awesome. Let's talk about some of the best songs on this project before I get to a few minor criticisms. Nothing major, just some stuff that makes it a little bit forgettable for me. But let's start off positive. I want to talk about a couple of songs in particular that I am really loving. The track with Schoolboy Q, Party Next Door, and Dram is fantastic. Cash Out. What an anthem right there. He sounds so smooth. Groovy Q, Groovy Tony, Schoolboy Q coming through with something where he's talking about the 80s, and then of course you got Dram talking about the 70s, partying like he's got his fro like it's back in the day, and they really kick it back with this disco funk groove. And then Party Next Door actually comes through with a cool hook. And you guys might know I'm not a huge fan of the whole auto-tune singer and rapper and this R&B and trap rap that's coming through in waves at this point. It just kind of seems oversaturated because we're getting a lot of those people like your Lil Yachty's, your Party Next Door, and Future, of course, which are all featured on this very record. So I wasn't sure how that would sit with me, and honestly, the majority of them are fine. I'll get to my complaints about Lil Yachty in a minute though. Prayer Flares Up, which was produced with fellow DJ A-Track, is great. The scratching in the turntables at the end is fantastic. Kicks it back to some older styles. I love that. Whenever turntables can pop up and they're used in a prominent way effectively, I am almost always on board. Travis Scott is on this one, and if a lot of you guys know behind the scenes, like the writing and that sort of thing, it makes sense, like the list of collaborators that I'm seeing here. You've got Travis Scott, Big Sean, and even Frank Ocean, I believe, has done some writing with the singer, songwriter, record producer, writer, Stara. And she has done a lot of work with a lot of prominent artists of this day and age. And here on this one, she's pretty much worked with the majority of those artists. A couple of others I'm sure that I'm missing. And I think she even wrote Swish Swish, Katy Perry's new one. So you know that she's worked with a lot of the big figures. She worked with a lot of them here on this project and closely with Calvin Harris. So I think it paid off. There's a lot of good collaborations here, and they actually bring out some chemistry. And one of those tracks, which I think is just really, really good, is Heat Stroke. That features Ariana Grande. She really soars at the end of that tune. Pharrell Williams is kind of the star of the show, I would say. And Young Thug, while asinine, is better than usual, I would say. And coming off of his beautiful Thugger Girls project that I was kind of with Fantano on that one. Everyone's just all of a sudden calling him some sort of legend because you put an acoustic guitar on your mixtape. The man, the myth, the legend, Snoop Dogg popped up on Holiday, which does go on a bit long for me, but I like Snoop's part of it a whole lot. And then, surprisingly, Takeoff from Migos was okay. We had a couple of the Migos on the first time, we got the other two, and now we have Takeoff versus, Quavo and Offset on that opening track, Slide, with Frank Ocean, which I think is a good enough jam. I don't think it's the best song on this, but I think a lot of people were overhyping it just because, oh wow, it's Frank Ocean who gets the praise every single time, no matter what it seems, and then Migos, of course. But I would say of the Migos features, I think Takeoff's was a little bit better. Maybe I'm just down with the vibe of Holiday a bit more. It feels a bit more old school and vintage, at least with the guests that we have on it, and it's a good combination of John Legend, Snoop Dogg, and Takeoff here. And to close it out on my favorites on this record, what I'm really feeling positively about, the final one of those would be Feels, and that's a great track that features Pharrell once again, Katy Perry, and Big Sean. And I think Big Sean might be the weakest element of that track. His flows are a little bit weird, and some of the rapping all over this record, we got a lot of kind of silly lines, and they felt like fluff. And I know it's a summertime fun record, but let's not get too stupid. Feels has flows for days, though. I think it's probably my favorite track on this album from Calvin Harris. They did a great job of just bringing out the best of pretty much every artist. Like I said, Big Sean maybe a little weaker, but still, Pharrell sounds ace on this thing. And then Katy Perry, surprisingly, on the hook as well, doing a great job. You guys know I wasn't a fan of her last record, but I'm always down to give her a shot. I've enjoyed a lot of her singles in the past, and this is another great feature for her here. I would have liked to have seen more like this on her new album, Witness. So what went wrong with the other parts of the album? Why is some of it forgettable in my eyes? Why does some of it just kind of slip away? Well, a lot of it does have a very similar bumping, bassy, beachy vibe, if that makes sense. A lot of that thumping bass, steady guitar, the piano's striking, and it doesn't always strike a chord with the listener. I feel like a lot of it can just slip through your fingertips. You're listening to this thing, and before you know it, it's over, and only a handful of tracks really stand out in my mind. And that's kind of a weak thing, especially with only 10 songs. You would want them to maybe latch on a bit more. But at the same time, if you're playing it in the background as party music, it could be okay. But sitting down and listening to it as a record, especially with a lot of rappers, a lot of people who might have something to say, as Future says on his track, you have to be on codeine to come up with the shit that I say. And I don't find any of his shit really even remotely interesting. That's one of my least favorite tracks there, even if I do like the Khalid feature there. He sounded quite nice on that tune. But Future just really rambling at this point. I feel like he's oversaturated just like Drake. He's putting out so much music that it's just like, how could you possibly have anything left to say? Skirt on Me by Nicki Minaj is a track that I find to be a bit odd because it's so auto-tuned, and I know this is maybe not the first time that Minaj has ever done that, but here it just doesn't suit her. In fact, I've actually been a little bit more praiseworthy of Minaj lately. Like, I've been praising some of her features. You guys know I'm not big on her at all. In fact, I pretty much dislike the majority of her solo stuff, except for a few tracks here and there. But this one, I just cannot say that I am vibing with whatsoever. It's just not sticking in my mind. There's something that lacks, and I feel like a lot of her personality has been stripped away. And while I'm not always a fan of her personality, at least she stands out as being unique. And here, I feel like she's just a bit dumbed down. The closing track, Hard to Love, I could say is kind of skippable in my opinion. It just kind of closes out with a very predictable setup, the story, the formula, and the feel of the tune. It just doesn't send this album out on something that does it justice, because there were a lot of fun songs here, a lot of tempo, a lot of beat, a lot of bass and that sort of thing, and this one just kind of gets lost in the echo out in space somewhere. Right before that, we got the Lil Yachty feature. Kehlani did okay on this track. I think she was the main star of Faking It, which is track 9, and it's okay, it's fine. I liked her track Gangsta from, I believe it was the Suicide Squad soundtrack where that appeared. She was fine there, and once again, she comes through with nothing that really catches my ear, but it's okay. But then Lil Yachty comes in talking about a little bit of story time. He's talking about how his mom is the one that deals with heartbreak. She's got so many stories. She's the doctor in that regard. And then he's talking about this girl that he used to like or date or something. And he's saying, remember when I used to put pepperonis on your face and make you a creature, and now I think about you every time I eat pizza. Creature, pizza, rhyme, and altogether just really cringeworthy, and it's Lil Yachty, so of course he's terrible. I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say. I hope you enjoyed my review today. I don't think this is an overwhelmingly great project, but at the same time, it's good for the most part. It's good, it's enjoyable, it's fun. I think that for the summer at least, it could be memorable for a lot of people. I don't know so much for me, so I'm gonna hold off on giving this too positive of a score, but I do think it's a step in the right direction for Calvin Harris. I'm impressed with his skills really behind everything that he was doing, multi-instrumentalist. The production was pretty good, and that was probably the biggest praise that I could throw this project. So overall, I'm gonna give this a light 3.5 for Funk Wav Bounces Volume 1 by Calvin Harris. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and if you're able to support me on Patreon, it's the annotation over in the corner of the screen. It helps videos like this keep coming on a monthly basis, not only on this channel, but beyond ARTV as well. A couple of recent videos are right below me right here, and all of my social medias can be found linked in the description down below.